It was one of those bone-tiring days, the kind where you drag yourself home from work, dreaming of nothing but a hot shower and a cold drink. I pulled into my driveway, my eyes half closed, when something caught my attention. A messy stack of packages teetered on my front porch, not tucked neatly into my mailbox like usual for the smaller ones. Weird, I thought, but then I glanced across the street. There she was, Lillian Harper, or the warden, as the neighborhood whispered behind her back, standing in her driveway, arms crossed, with a smirk that screamed trouble. Her eyes locked onto me, and I swear, it was like she was daring me to notice something. I shrugged it off and headed to my mailbox, but when I tried to open it, the metal door wouldn't budge. I yanked harder, feeling this strange, gummy resistance. Finally, with a sickening saw-crack saw, it gave way, and I saw the problem. The entire seam was sealed shut with what looked like heavy-duty glue, the kind you'd use to fix a boat, not a mailbox. My stomach twisted as I peered inside and found a note, written on crisp HOA letterhead. For your own good. Too many deliveries look suspicious. Lillian, HOA president. I stood there, the paper trembling in my hand, my exhaustion replaced by a slow-burning rage. Who glued someone's mailbox shut? And suspicious? What was she even talking about? I'd only been in Maple Grove for 3 months, my first real home after years of scraping by to afford it. The place was a dream-perfect lawns, quiet streets, the kind of neighborhood you see in magazines. I ran a small online business selling vintage toys and books, which meant packages arrived regularly. It was my livelihood, not a crime. But from the moment I moved in, Lillian had me in her crosshairs. As HOA president, she treated the rulebook like a holy text. And me? I was apparently her personal heretic. At first, it was just snide remarks. My grass was a 1/4 inch too tall. My trash can lingered at the curb 10 minutes past regulation. Annoying, but I could handle it. Then the packages started rolling in, and something in Lillian snapped. Just last week, she cornered me by my car as I unloaded boxes. "This isn't a warehouse district," she'd said, her smile sharp as a knife. "Some of us value the residential VYB." I explained my business, kept it polite, even forced a smile. "Nothing illegal about mail, Lillian." Her eyes narrowed. "We'll see," she muttered, scribbling something on her clipboard before stalking off. Now, staring at my ruined mailbox, I realized she'd gone from petty to unhinged. I snapped photos of the glue, the note, the porch packages, then hauled everything inside. I was leave VYD, but decided to sleep on it. Big mistake. The next morning, I woke to the sound of a camera shutter. Peeking through my blinds, I saw Lillian at the edge of my driveway, snapping pictures of a freshly delivered box. When the delivery guy showed up with another, she swooped in while VYing her phone and pointing at my house like she was directing traffic. The poor guy looked baffled, but handed her the package. I watched, jaw on the floor, as she carried my saw property to her house. That was it. I stormed across the street and pounded on her door. When she answered, I saw my package sitting on her entryway table, plain as day. "That's mine," I said, keeping my voice steady despite the fire in my chest. "Oh, this?" she cooed, all fake innocence. I was keeping it safe. Daily deliveries look suspicious. The neighborhood watch is concerned. I didn't blink. "Give it back, or I'm calling the cops." She sighed like I was the unreasonable one and handed it over. Then, with a smirk, she added, "You've got 3 HOA violations this week. Excessive deliveries, improper business, and aesthetic noncompliance. That's due law 500 in fines." I laughed. I couldn't help it. Show me where the bylaws limit my mail. Her face turned beet red. "The board decides what protects our standards," she snapped. "You'll get the citations tomorrow." And she wasn't kidding. Over the next 2 weeks, she turned my life into a nightmare. She stopped every delivery truck while VYing her clipboard like a dictator. She passed out flyers warning neighbors about suspicious active VY tie at my address. Some neighbors avoided me. Others shot me pitying looks but stayed quiet. A few whispered warnings about Lillian's history of DRI VYing out people she didn't like. I tried talking to the HOA board, but they were spineless, terrified of crossing her. Then came the morning that changed everything. After the first mailbox incident, I'd installed a doorbell camera, nothing fancy, just enough to keep an eye on things. At 5:45 a.m., my phone pinged with a motion alert. I opened the app and froze. There was Lillian in a bathrobe and slippers, gluing my mailbox shut. Saw. But that wasn't the worst of it. She grabbed a stack of packages from my porch boxes I hadn't even seen yet and marched across the street. I watched, heart pounding, as she dumped them in her garbage bins, ready for pickup. My blood boiled. This wasn't just harassment. This was theft, mail tampering, federal crimes. I saved the footage, made copies, and called the non-emergency police line, hands shaking with a mix of fury and nerves. The officer who showed up seemed skeptical until I played the video. His eyebrows shot up as Lillian's bathrobe-clad crime spree unfolded. "That's clear mail tampering," he said, suddenly all business. "Federal offense. We're escalating this." While the police did their thing, I took a different tack. I edited the footage and posted it to our neighborhood's social media group with one question: is this okay for an HOA president? I also sent it to a local news station's tip line. The response was explosive. Neighbors I'd never met messaged me with their own Lillian horror stories. The post spread like wildfire, shared hundreds of times beyond our little group. By noon, a reporter was calling about HOA overreach. Lillian's counterattack was a disaster. She posted a rambling defense online, claiming she was protecting property values for my shady business. When someone pointed out mail tampering was a federal crime, she deleted it, but screenshots were already everywhere. The next morning, I watched from my office window as 2 cops and a postal inspector showed up at Lillian's door. She flailed, pointing at my house, shouting something I couldn't hear. When they pressed her, she tried to slam the door in their faces. Big mistake. Within minutes, she was in handcuffs, still in her bathrobe, yelling about community standards as they led her to a cruiser. Neighbors spilled onto their lawns, phones out, recording her downfall. I later learned the charges: mail theft, obstruction of delivery, and mailbox vandalism, all federal. A search of her house turned up a box of stolen packages, mine and others, from neighbors she'd labeled suspicious. The district attorney's office called 2 days later. Lillian faced up to 5 years in prison and due law $250,000 in fines. She'd probably get less, being a first-timer, but the penalties would sting. The HOA board, finally growing a spine, voted her out unanimously. Her real estate job? Gone, after her boss put her on indefinite leave. When she slunk back home under court restrictions, her face was a mix of shock and rage. For someone who'd weaponized HOA rules for years, real law was a brutal wake-up call. I stood at my window, watching her return, and felt a strange mix of relief and vindication. Lillian had ruled Maple Grove like a tyrant, but her reign was over. The neighborhood felt lighter, like we could all breathe again. Still, I couldn't help wondering, how many others had she driven out? And what makes someone like her think they're above the law? So what do you think? Was Lillian just a control freak gone too far? Or was she genuinely trying to protect the neighborhood? Should I have confronted her sooner? Or was going public the only way to stop her? And here's the big one. Are HOAs more trouble than they're worth? Or do they still have a place in keeping communities together? Drop your thoughts below, hit that like button if you felt the drama, and subscribe for more stories like this. Let's keep this conversation going.